Welcome to another episode of The Artsy Raven, a show about writing and publishing with your host, J.F. Garrard.
Welcome to another episode of The Artsy Raven. Today, our special author guest is Debs Nossiter, and he is a son and brother of reporters, being one himself. After a stint at the Concord Monitor in New Hampshire, he joined the staff of Barron's in New York and freelanced in Washington for the New Republic and the Washington Post Sunday magazine. He now lives and writes in Santa Fe, New Mexico. So welcome.
Glad to be here.
Now tell me a little bit about how you became a writer. Do you find it similar to being a reporter? I mean, you're writing.
Well, I had been studying to be a classic scholar, mainly ancient Greek, and I discovered that I didn't want to be a Greek scholar. I wanted to be a writer. I was homeschooled in journalism by my father, and I thought it would be wise to find some way of getting paid to learn to write. So I became a reporter too.
Now you say your brothers also reporters?
Yes, I have a brother at the New York Times and a filmmaker brother, Jonathan, who also has written books. And my father has written books.
Oh wow, very creative family. No one in my family writes, so I'm just a weird person.
Well, we're grateful to you because we need more readers and fewer writers.
That is true. That is true. Okay. Now you have a new book called Devil Take It. Can you tell us a little bit about the book and what inspired it?
Certainly. Uh, I was curious to see what would happen if the devil took a more direct hand in matters in Washington, D.C. And I set out to discover just what that might be. I was once asked what influence does being a reporter have on being a writer? And I discovered that the easiest answer is that, like a reporter, a novelist is an interviewer. The only difference is that a reporter interviews other people and a novelist interviews his own imagination.
So how long did it take you to write this book?
All my life.
Okay. Okay.
This particular story, I began over 20 years ago, and it stirred up some interest, but I set it aside rather than rewrite it according to the publishing world's idea of what I should be writing about. And then a gift was given to me. Donald Trump was elected, and I realized that the president, who plays a small part in the story, but an important part in the plot, had suddenly given me the spur to a new kind of action. So I incorporated Trump into the story. I had hoped when I finished the story that I was going to be able to say goodbye to him, but evidently he wants to stick around for a while.
I have to say he does inspire a lot of writers. I have a publishing house. We do have an anthology about Trump when he was first elected. Like at the time we were giving him a chance. Like we were looking for good and bad stories.
Mhm.
And had all these people write in. They're like, we really don't like him, but we want to write about him. He's such a fascinating figure. He's very polarizing. And now he is president again. So it's interesting what's going to happen.
Right,
Now, your devil take is it? I guess it's the Christian devil you're talking about, right? Like, do you take from mythology to incorporate into your book, or?
well, I draw on a lot of sources. What one of the reasons I write is to find out what I'm thinking.
Hmm.
Uh, and as I thought through the character, the character began to take on a life of its own and began to tell me things I didn't know about him. One of the one of the surprising things that the devil insisted on is that he's the angel of play. And his play, as you might imagine from the father of lies, can be quite perverse. But he insists on it throughout the story and makes a case, at least to the protagonist of the story, Eustace Boggs, that that the element of lightheartedness is an important aspect of a successful life. So one can learn from The Enemy of Man.
So tell me a little bit, like a summary of your book. Like if you're introducing it to a reader, what would you tell them?
Well, I would say that the editor of the letters page of the Washington newspaper, which in the story is the Washington Oracle, is being visited by Dr. Griffin Fall, a psychiatrist, who, as it turns out, is the devil himself. He comes to Eustace Boggs first in a dream, and then in a waking dream, and finally Boggs acknowledges that this is the devil himself. The devil, as Dr. Fall, the psychiatrist, diagnoses Eustace Boggs with a condition he calls mortality, and he treats Eustace Boggs by telling him the secret history of mankind, from the true story of Adam and Eve to the present. Boggs, who is aware that it's dangerous to deal with the devil, can't help but be interested in these stories. And this is part of the story. The other part is that Eustace Boggs is something of a rascal. And out of varying motives, he contributes a pseudonymous letter to his own page in which he suggests that we'd all be better off if we'd only all mind our own business. And as a consequence of this, history stops for an afternoon in Washington.
Okay.
It sounds a little confusing, but it's not.
Because you said you started it like 20 years ago, but how did you adjust it to the current climate? Like,
Well, much of it is unchanged.
yeah.
The theme of mind your own business, which seems to capture people's attention. In fact, I was somewhat surprised to see that the vice presidential candidate for the Democrats used that very phrase in his inaugural or introductory speech. And then the more I thought about it, the less I was surprised, because from these commonsensical things, extraordinary things can occur.
Yeah, a lot of times history repeats itself too, unfortunately.
That's right. Remember, Mark Twain said history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes.
Oh, okay. So what are some of the principal literary references and allusions in the novel, do you think?
Well, the first one is Michael Bulgakov, who wrote The Master and Margarita, in which the devil comes to Moscow and raises hell. And every other chapter is a very dramatic and beautiful retelling of the crucifixion of Jesus. But the drawback to Bulgakov's novel is that the two halves don't fit. They exist separately from each other. One of the things I wanted to do was to integrate the devil's account of the history of mankind with the action in Washington stemming from the exhortation to mind your own business. And I wrote it so that the two depend on each other, the two themes of the story. But there are many influences, beginning with Plato, Socratic inquiry into what we know and what we don't know. Rabelais and Cervantes. Rabelais because he defined the happy life as a certain lightness of spirit confected from a contempt for fate. And Cervantes, whose famously errant hero, Don Quixote, who tilts against windmills, is looking for meaning, and he finds it fighting illusions. So those are the three chief references or influences. But there's an American novel that had a huge influence too, and it's always in the back of my mind writing the story, and that's The Confederacy of Dunces by John Kennedy Toole. He has a hero who's engages in antic buffoonery, and to some degree, my hero does too.
Now, after this book is out, like, are you working on another book, a sequel or anything?
Not a sequel. No, actually, a quite different book. It's done, and I'm rewriting it now. I live in New Mexico, and there is an important early 20th century school of painting in Santa Fe and Taos. And this is a story about one of the painters and the fabulous landscape that we live in. It's called Light on Things, and it comes from Ansel Adams, the great photographer's remark about northern New Mexico, that here it is not things in light. I'm sorry, it's not light on things. It's things in light. And so the story is called Things in Light.
Oh, it sounds very different from this book.
Totally.
Yeah.
I've been told a couple of times that reading my book is like listening to the way I talk. So I wanted to write a book that didn't sound like me.
Okay. Now, what are your writing habits? Like, do you write first thing in the morning or?
When I think about it all the time. I'm a very slow writer.
I'm a slow writer too. It's okay.
I'm probably a very slow thinker too. That one of the reasons that I still use a manual typewriter is that
Oh, wow.
I don't need to be quick. Well, in fact, the cover of the book, if you don't have a picture of it, I'll show it to you. The cover of the book is
The swinging typewriter.
a wrecking ball typewriter about to crash into the White House, and that the image of that typewriter is my typewriter.
Oh, cool.
It's a Hermes 3000, glorious old machine.
Can you still find the ink for it?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
There's still a few eccentrics who repair typewriters and sell the ink ribbons.
oh, very cool. Very cool. Um, so we look forward to seeing your new work when that comes out, and we'll also include links for everybody to look for Devil Take It book so people can pick it up and read it when it comes out.
I hope they
Um,
do.
yes, I hope they do, and it's a satire, so I hope people will find some humor in it. And as you know, we live through another time in Washington, D.C. That well, right now it's still early. He doesn't start till January anyway, so.
Well, and somehow he's already left us out of breath, and really is an amazing character.
Yes, he is. He is.
Let's hope that we're able to maintain the comic sense with Trump, because I'm a little uncertain, little concerned that it may soon turn into the tragic view.
Well, I was surprised to hear our Prime Minister here in Canada flew over to Mar-a-Lago to have a quick meeting. So
Yeah,
hopefully our Prime Minister's flew something over. I don't know.
there's been a lot. I think there's been a certain amount of early fealty to this character Trump, and we saw with Jeff Bezos, who would not allow his Washington Post to endorse Harris or anybody.
Hmm.
Bezos has got monetary interests, government contracts he would like to have. And I expect that your Prime Minister Trudeau feels the same way.
Yeah, I was a bit surprised, like when I saw a tweet from Stephen King where he was angry at some of the newspapers, and I was like, oh, why is he angry? And I was like, well, oh gosh, they just want to be neutral because they're like thinking, "Oh, which side will win? Which side will benefit us, right?" I mean, it's a business at the end of the day, too.
A
So,
lot of it is. That's right.
Daniel, you're going to do a bit of a reading for us. Can you describe what you're going to read, and then you can just start reading?
Indeed. So the hero of the story, Eustace Boggs, is being visited by the devil in the form of a psychiatrist. His treatment or his therapy for the condition of mortality that he is diagnosed, Eustace Boggs, suffering from, is to tell him the secret history of humankind from Adam and Eve to the present. This is an encounter between the two of them about halfway through the story, where Boggs has acknowledged to himself that he is indeed being visited by the devil. The devil is now speaking as Dr. Griffin Fall. Point? There is no point. I only wish you to allow your imagination free play, like Rabelais. Why, even on his deathbed, that bollocky fellow didn't lose his zest. Drop the curtain. The farce is over, he said. I go to look for the great perhaps. And what is the great perhaps? Asked Boggs. Dr. Fall wagged his head. You do not have at present the faculties to comprehend. But you were there, said Boggs. You were there, and you fell. In other words, you were thrown out. For some reason, Boggs found this formulation a source of comfort. Dr. Fall narrowed his eyes. There was a red glint in their black depths. It became no longer appropriate for me to abide there. Not, Dr. Fall added with a twinkle, that there is any there. In that respect, eternity resembles Oakland. Put it any way that you like, said Boggs. It's the simple truth. I thought you said the truth is never simple. No, said Fall. I said the truth is never insipid. The truth is playful. The truth of Lucifer's fall, begging the question as your myth makers insist on doing, the truth is I did not wish to remain, nor was I wanted. Why weren't you wanted? Why was I no longer wanted? Because, my dear fellow, I laughed out of turn. Why wasn't it your turn? It was never my turn first. What did you laugh at? The reply came slowly. Dr. Fall lingered over every syllable. Everything. I laughed at simply everything. Boggs thought he heard laughter somewhere, a roaring in the atmosphere, like an ocean clearing its throat before launching a second flood. It was appalling. Boggs gathered himself together. I don't think you laughed. I think you mocked. Dr. Fall reacted to these words with such contempt that Boggs could feel the malice. What you think, or think you think, is a matter of indifference. Pride goeth before the fall, quote unquote. That old chestnut. I wasn't the spirit of pride that day. It was the old one. He was the prideful spirit. The overflow of being that your little friend Marina calls love, I assure you, it has the aspect of incorporeal sewage. He was just showing off. But I wasn't laughing at his vanity. He had made a joke, first joke, and I laughed, the first laugh. It was delightful and too utterly funny. Imagine, no one had ever seen anything like it. Corporeal being, clay. It had never occurred to us that created being was possible. Credit where credit's due. We uncreated ones never would have thought of it. The old one had come up with something absolutely new. But the best part of the joke was still coming. The spirit passed over that grotesque phenomenon, and the clay was quickened. It became animate. It began to breathe. In, out, pant, pant, gasp. It was killingly funny, a caricature of the spirit, a send-up of being. It would have been blasphemous if it hadn't been so hilarious. I was laughing with him, not at him. Of course, he didn't see it that way, the great humorless one. And the consequences, we could see those right away. Time, ebbing and flowing, beginnings and endings, things that are and then suddenly are not. I quite liked it. It was ironic, beautifully grim. I was grateful for the diversion. He was not diverted. He expected us to take it seriously. The consequence was that po-faced, cheerless, naysaying virtuose so-and-sos became all the fashion, just like that Hebrew prophet. That was another one who never laughed. And he called himself the Son of Man? Indeed. Rabelais, on the other hand, he was in fact as advertised, abstracted of the quintessence, and full to overflowing with Pantagruelism, which, I will remind you, is a certain lightness of spirit, confected of a contempt for fate. It is an attractive attitude, Boggs admitted. It is, replied Dr. Fall with satisfaction, no less than freedom itself. I've noticed you're prone to exaggerate, observed Boggs. And you, Mr. Boggs, are sometimes humorless. It can be deadening. It can kill. Humor is the only refuge for what you've got coming to you. It is detachment from cause and effect. Here, let me show you. They go on to back in time to meet Rabelais himself.
Oh, very cool. Well, thank you very much for spending time with us today.
Well, thank you for having me.
And good luck with your next book as well.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
For more upcoming episodes of the Artsy Raven about writing and publishing, visit us at jfgarrard.com/arpodcast. A reminder to Patreon subscribers that there is bonus content available for every episode on the Patreon website. If you enjoyed the show, you can show your appreciation by buying us some digital coffee. The Artsy Raven is produced by J.F. Garrard. The voice in the show's introduction is Chris Gorman, and music is by Tim Moore. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, stay safe.